Let me tell you about a man who almost destroyed my life. His name was Carmine Ventimiglia. Grew up 2 blocks from me in Bensonhurst. We were friends from the time we were 12 years old, running through the streets, getting into trouble, sharing everything the way boys do when they're young and the world feels infinite. Carmine was smart, charming, the kind of guy who could talk his way into anywhere and out of anything. Everybody liked Carmine. I liked Carmine. But Carmine had something inside him that I didn't recognize until it was almost too late. A darkness, a bitterness that grew slowly, year by year, like mold spreading behind a wall. You couldn't see it from the outside, but it was eating him from within. And the thing about darkness like that, it doesn't stay contained. It reaches out. It grabs onto the people closest to it and tries to pull them down too. By the time I was 25, Carmine had become someone I barely recognized. Still charming on the surface, still quick with a joke, but underneath, angry, resentful, convinced the world owed him something it wasn't delivering. And he wanted me to feel the same way. Every conversation became about what was wrong, who had wronged him, why nothing ever worked out, why the system was rigged, why people couldn't be trusted, why hoping for anything good was just setting yourself up for disappointment. I started believing him. That's the scary part. His poison was so gradual, so wrapped in friendship and shared history that I didn't notice it seeping in. I started seeing the world through his eyes, suspicious, bitter, small. It took my sister Rosa grabbing me by the shoulders one day and saying, "Salvatore, what happened to you? You used to laugh. You used to believe in things. Now you sound like an old man who's given up, and you're not even 30. That woke me up. I looked at myself, looked at who I was becoming, and realized Carmine was making me into him. I pulled away. It wasn't easy. We'd been friends for 15 years, but I had to choose between the friendship and my soul. I chose my soul. Carmine died in 1962, alone, estranged from everyone who ever cared about him. The bitterness he nursed his whole life consumed him completely, and I've thought about him often over the years, because Carmine taught me something important. The most dangerous people in your life aren't always the ones who seem dangerous. They're not the loud ones, the obviously threatening ones, the people you know to avoid. Sometimes they're your friends. Sometimes they're family. Sometimes they're people you trust completely. And that's what I want to talk about today. The 5 most dangerous types of people you'll encounter in your life. Not dangerous because they'll hurt you physically, but dangerous because they'll damage something more important: your spirit, your character, your capacity for joy. My name is Salvatore Benedetto. I've watched people my whole life, in my shop, in my neighborhood, in my family. I've seen what certain types of people do to the ones around them, and I want to help you recognize them before they do the same to you. The first dangerous person, the one who's given up, not given up on a job or a project, given up on life, given up on the possibility that things can be good, that people can be trusted, that tomorrow might be better than today. These people are dangerous because despair is contagious. It spreads through proximity. Spend enough time with someone who stopped believing in anything, and you'll start to feel your own hope draining away. I had a customer, Arthur Jankowski, came in every month for decades, who went through a terrible divorce in his 50s, lost his house, lost his savings, barely saw his kids, and I understood. That kind of loss breaks something in you, but Arthur never rebuilt. He just stopped trying, stopped hoping, stopped living. He'd sit in my shop and talk for hours about how nothing mattered anymore, how the world was cruel and people were selfish, and there was no point in expecting anything good. I cared about Arthur. I wanted to help him, but I noticed something. Every time he left, I felt heavier, darker, like some of his hopelessness had rubbed off on me. Here's what I want you to understand. You cannot save someone who refuses to be saved, and you will drown trying. Compassion is good. Wanting to help is good. But there's a difference between walking alongside someone through darkness and letting them pull you into the pit with them. If someone in your life has given up completely, if every conversation leaves you feeling worse, if their despair is starting to feel like your own, you need to create distance. Not because you don't care, but because you can't pour from an empty cup. So here's what I want you to do. Think about the people you spend the most time with. After you see them, do you feel energized or drained? Hopeful or hopeless? That's your answer. Protect it. The second dangerous person, the one who keeps score. Every relationship has give and take. That's normal. That's healthy. But some people turn relationships into accounting ledgers. They track every favor, every kindness, every sacrifice, and they expect repayment with interest. I had a friend like this, Dominic Caruso. We worked together on a community project in the 60s, rebuilding a playground that had fallen apart. Dominic worked hard. He gave his time, but he never let you forget it. Remember when I stayed late to finish the fence? Remember when I drove all the way to Staten Island to pick up those supplies? Remember when I covered for you that time? Every kindness came with an invisible invoice attached, and God forbid you couldn't pay when He came to collect. People who keep score aren't really giving, they're investing. They're building a debt they plan to call in later. And when you can't repay them exactly how they want, when they want, they turn cold, resentful. Suddenly, you're the ungrateful one. Suddenly, you're the bad friend. True generosity has no strings attached. When you give to someone your time, your help, your love, give it freely or don't give it at all. The moment you start keeping track of what you're owed, you poison the relationship. And when someone gives to you with strings attached, recognize it for what it is: a transaction disguised as friendship, a trap with a delayed trigger. My wife Gloria, God rest her soul, she used to say, "Sal, if someone keeps reminding you what they've done for you, they didn't do it for you. They did it for themselves." She was right. She was always right about people. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. Are you keeping score in any of your relationships? And is anyone keeping score with you? If the answer is yes, address it. Have the conversation. Clear the ledger. Because relationships built on debt eventually collapse under the weight. The third dangerous person, the one who never takes responsibility. You know this person. We all know this person. Nothing is ever their fault. Every failure has an excuse. Every mistake has a scapegoat. The boss was unfair. The system was rigged. Someone else dropped the ball. They would have succeeded if only. I worked with a man like this in the early 50s, Antonio Greco. He was a leather supplier. I bought materials from him for my shop. Antonio's deliveries were always late. His quality was inconsistent. His invoices were wrong half the time. And every single time, he had an explanation that placed the blame somewhere else. The shipping company, his employees, the weather, bad luck. Never once did Antonio say, "I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll do better." Never once. I stopped doing business with him after 2 years, and I watched his company slowly fail over the next decade, customer by customer, as everyone got tired of the excuses. Here's the thing about people who never take responsibility: they never grow. Growth requires acknowledging failure. Learning requires admitting you were wrong. If every mistake is someone else's fault, you never have to change. You stay exactly who you are. And who you are is someone who keeps making the same mistakes over and over. But here's why they're dangerous to you. If they never take responsibility for their own failures, they definitely won't take responsibility for how they treat you. When they hurt you, it'll be your fault. When they let you down, you'll be the unreasonable one. They'll twist every situation until they're the victim and you're the problem. So here's what I want you to pay attention to. When someone in your life makes a mistake, what happens next? Do they own it? Do they apologize genuinely? Do they try to do better? Or do they explain, justify, blame, deflect? Watch what people do when they're wrong. It tells you everything about who they are. The fourth dangerous person, the one with nothing to lose. Now, I don't mean this the way you might think. I'm not talking about someone who's poor or struggling. Some of the best people I've ever known had nothing in their pockets and everything in their hearts. I'm talking about someone who's lost their sense of stake in the world. Someone who doesn't care about consequences anymore because they've decided nothing matters. Someone who's cut all the ties that used to hold them accountable to family, to community, to their own future. This is dangerous because people with nothing to lose have nothing to restrain them. I saw this happen to a young man in my neighborhood, Danny Marchetti. Good kid originally, came from a decent family, had a job, had a girlfriend, had a future. Then things fell apart. Lost the job. Girlfriend left. Family threw him out over something stupid that could have been forgiven if anyone had tried. And Danny stopped caring. You could see it in his eyes, this emptiness, this "what's the point?" that colored everything he did. He started taking risks that made no sense, getting into fights over nothing, saying things that burned bridges he could never rebuild, making choices that had consequences he no longer cared about. Danny ended up in prison by 25, not because he was evil, but because he'd lost his sense of connection to anything that made consequences real. Here's what I want you to understand. The ties that bind us are also the ties that save us. Your relationships, your responsibilities, your stake in the future. These aren't burdens, they're anchors. They keep you grounded when the storms come. They give you reasons to think twice before doing something destructive. When someone loses all those anchors, they drift. And drifting people are unpredictable. They can hurt you without meaning to, without even caring, because they've stopped caring about anything. So here's what I want you to notice. Does anyone in your life seem untethered, disconnected from consequences, acting like tomorrow doesn't matter? That person needs help, but they also need to be handled carefully, because people with nothing to lose sometimes take others down with them. The fifth dangerous person, and this is the hardest one to talk about, the one hiding in plain sight. This is the person who seems perfectly normal, perfectly nice, pleasant, even charming. You'd never look at them and see danger. They don't fit any stereotype. They don't raise any obvious red flags. But something is wrong underneath. Something calculating. Something cold. I don't like talking about this because it sounds paranoid, and I'm not a paranoid person. I believe most people are good. I've staked my whole life on that belief. But I've also lived long enough to know that not everyone is what they seem. I had a customer, I won't use his real name, so I'll call him Gerald, came into my shop for years, always polite, always smiling, made pleasant conversation about the weather, about sports, about nothing in particular. I liked Gerald. Everyone liked Gerald. Then one day his wife came into the shop alone. She was wearing long sleeves in July. Her eyes were hollow. She flinched when I reached out to hand her the shoes. I didn't ask questions. It wasn't my place. But I watched more carefully after that. I noticed things I'd missed before. The way Gerald talked about his wife, with this subtle edge underneath the pleasant words. The way he'd make jokes that weren't really jokes. The way people seemed smaller around him somehow, even though he never raised his voice. I never knew for sure what went on in that house, but I knew enough to know Gerald wasn't what he appeared to be. Here's what I want you to understand. Trust your instincts. If something feels off about someone, even if you can't explain why, even if everyone else thinks they're wonderful, pay attention. Your gut picks up on things your conscious mind misses. You don't have to accuse anyone. You don't have to make a scene. But you can create distance. You can protect yourself and the people you love. You can stop ignoring that little voice that whispers, something's not right here. So here's what I want you to do. Think about the people in your life who seem too perfect, too pleasant, too polished. I'm not saying they're all hiding something. Most of them aren't. But if your instincts are whispering, listen. Better to be cautious with someone who's actually fine than to ignore warning signs about someone who isn't. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not telling you to become suspicious of everyone. I'm not telling you to see danger around every corner. That's no way to live. I've spent my whole life believing in people, and I still do. But wisdom isn't just seeing the good. It's also recognizing the patterns that lead to harm and protecting yourself before the harm arrives. The 5 types I've described aren't monsters. Most of them are just people who've gotten lost somehow. People who are hurting and spreading that hurt around. People who never learned better or gave up trying. You can have compassion for them and still keep your distance. You can wish them well and still protect yourself. You can even love them from far enough away that their damage doesn't reach you. I'm 106 years old. I've met thousands of people in my life. The vast majority of them were good, decent, trying their best. But I've also met the 5 types I've described, and I've watched them damage the people who got too close. Sometimes those people were me. Carmine Ventimiglia almost pulled me into his bitterness. Dominic Caruso almost made me believe relationships were transactions. Antonio Greco almost convinced me that excuses were acceptable. Danny Marchetti almost took me with him when he spiraled. And Gerald, well, Gerald reminded me that surfaces can lie. I survived all of them. Partly luck, partly awareness, partly the grace of having people in my life who saw what was happening and warned me. So consider this my warning to you. Pay attention to who you let close. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your energy, your heart. Not everyone will handle those gifts carefully. Choose wisely. Watch closely. Trust your gut. The most dangerous people don't announce themselves. They blend in. They seem normal. But if you know what to look for, you can see them before they see you. And once you see them, you can protect what matters. Arrivederci.